is Jake, and today I am answering a request from my buddy Jack from the Autumn Dogs, and he wanted me to review the Kinks' incredible album, Something Else by the Kinks. Now, if you are by any chance unfamiliar with the Kinks, they are an English rock band formed in 1964, and they consisted of brothers Ray Davies on vocals and rhythm guitar and Dave Davies on lead guitar, as well as Pete Quaife on bass and Mick Avery on drums. Also, this album is one of the few Kinks albums that has the distinct honor of featuring the late, great Nicky Hopkins on piano. This is the band's fifth studio album, released September 15th, 1967, and this is the album where Ray Davies sort of assumed producer duties, which led to the sort of pretty interesting change in their sound. Definitely for the better. This really is, like also The Who, this 1967 was the year that the Kinks really, really came into their own. This album is so eclectic and diverse in its sound. It's so layered, so incredibly well put together. I don't think this band could have done a better job with a lot of this record. I'll get to, some minor issues here and there, but for the most part, this is absolutely one of my favorite albums of this decade. It is absolutely beautiful. And now, onto the songs. Track 1, David Watts. Fantastic opener. This is definitely a favorite of mine here. It's so incredibly catchy. It'll definitely be stuck in your head the first time you listen to it. And right off the bat, it's such an if you've listened to the Kinks' previous stuff, listening to this song right off the bat that it's going to be something else, for lack of a better term. There's been kind of a lot of discussion around the sort of homoerotic subtext in this song, and really I think it makes for a super interesting piece here, especially for this time period. It wasn't very much, stuff like that wasn't very much talked about at all, and I really admired the Kinks for sort of exploring that a little bit. This was, I believe, inspired by a concert promoter that Ray Davies knew, who was actually interested, very much so romantically, in his brother Dave. So I can only ever imagine the, shall we say, drama that caused between them. If you know how the Davies brothers are, rock bands and siblings are a recipe for disaster, and the Davies brothers are no exception. Also, really quick, I know that The Jam did an excellent cover of this song. They are another one of my favorite bands. But I have to talk about, while the opportunity is here, about another band from Cleveland that did a cover of this song. A great cover. A little band called The Choir. If you have not heard The Choir, check out their cover of this and check out It's Cold Outside. One of the best, rock songs, pop rock, best popular songs that you will hear of the 60s and probably of all time. It is a song that stays with you for sure. Am I saying that from Cleveland because I'm from Cleveland? I actually don't think so. I think it's an incredible song from an incredible band. Definitely check out The Choir. Track 2, Death of a Clown. This is actually one of the singles released on this album, and it was inspired by the Kinks' sort of grueling touring schedule. I have never really liked this song very much, I gotta be honest with you. It's probably my least favorite on here already. And, I like the chord progression. I like it. I don't think Dave Davies was right for this song, vocally, at all. I know he wrote it, I get it, but really, I mean, it just, I don't like his voice on this. I mean, he's not a bad singer. You know, I love his vocals in, you know, Strangers, and actually, you know, some other songs on here. He sounds pretty good. This song, I'm just not feeling it. Sorry. Track 3, Two Sisters. This is one of my favorite Kinks songs ever. It is just 2 minutes of pop perfection. That is how I can describe it. It's got a very baroque pop sort of feel, you know, with the harpsichord and whatnot. The harpsichord sounds amazing on here. And, you know, it's kind of about how it's very much inspired by the Davies brothers dynamic. You know, one is, you know, just sort of kind of like a homebody, and the other is like a total sort of, you know, extrovert socialite, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's very much how Ray and Dave were in real life, and that translates over to the Two Sisters. And I mean, it's Ray definitely wrote this one and arranged it from the heart, and you can just tell it is so perfect in every sense. Also, Ray sounds fantastic on this song. I give him props for making the words washing machine sound dramatic. So, Ray, you're awesome. Track 4, No Return. This one is so vastly underrated. It definitely sounds like a love song to Ray's first wife, Raza Davies, and he sounds so serene on this song, and the very sort of stripped down instrumentation, it is just a beautiful, heart-achingly gorgeous song. Definitely, this is definitely one of the prettiest love songs I think of the 60s, and that's saying a lot. Definitely check this one out. Track 5, Harry Rag. This one has always been one of my favorites. The highlight for me on this song is Ray's lyricism. He is absolutely one of music's wittiest and most clever and just overall very entertaining lyricists. He's definitely, as my buddy Jack said, he is like Britain's poet laureate. I totally couldn't agree more. He is just fantastic with words, and is very much sort of a commentary on, you know, people. Harry Rag is a British slang for cigarette, and it's basically who just about people who just live their lives for just that one drag, you know. And before I get people in my comments being like, I am not knocking that at all. I'm saying what the song's about. You know, I'm very much like the, you know, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, you know, whatever you do is whatever you want to do. I'm very much that type. So, I mean, I really have no super strong feelings about that. But yeah, very much enjoy hearing Ray's thoughts, so to speak. You can definitely tell he was having fun recording this one. You know, especially the smart young ladies of the land can't relax without a Harry in there. You can, I mean, you could just probably just hear the smile on his face. It is such a it's probably the catchiest song on the album, if I'm being honest. It is definitely one of the most memorable, for sure. Track 6, Tin Soldier Man. I really love this one. It kind of sounds to me like a sort of satirical take on British soldiers. I really love the chord progression here. This is another really catchy one. And the other big standout to me here is the use of brass instrumentation, which sounds fantastic. This is definitely one of my favorite Kinks albums, sort of for that reason. Ray was really sort of experimenting with breaking away from the traditional rock style that they were previously doing, and just sort of just experimenting with new sort of instrumental styles and various other instruments. And it seemed like they all worked on the first try. I mean, obviously, I'm sure he tinkered with them a little bit before, stepping into the studio, or at least recording for the album. But, I mean, like, a lot of bands do that. And, the first time they try to, be a little out there, it doesn't always sound right the first time. It sounded exactly how it needed to be right then and there the first time you hear this album. First time I heard it, for sure. Track 7, Situation Vacant. I love this song. One of my favorites on here. You already know when a song starts out with a Nicky Hopkins intro that it's going to be brilliant. And this song just exceeds those expectations. It's another satirical song. It's about sort of trying a little too hard to please the in-laws, namely the mother-in-law. And this is definitely the rock song of the album. I love Dave Davies' guitar on this one, especially, during the chorus, those little licks he does, they fit so well. And obviously Ray's lyricism on this one, his satire is top notch. And I mean, what I love about this is that it's a traditional Kinks rock song, but it sounds like one that would appear on this album if I had to envision it in my head. I mean, even when they stuck to their roots, it did not sound out of place in the slightest. Track 8, Love Me Till the Sun Shines. This is another Dave Davies lead vocal one, and it is definitely a step up from Death of a Clown, for sure. He sounds better. The riff is gnarly. I know that's kind of like surfer lingo, but seriously, that's the best way I can describe it. And surprisingly, this was the B-side to Death of a Clown. I'm sorry, this absolutely should have been the A-side. Not only is it a much better song, but it would have made for a much better single, in my opinion. It's definitely much more of an accessible song. I mean, even the chord progression is such a massive step up. Definitely, I would almost pin this as a highlight, as like a big highlight on the album. I do really like this one quite a bit. Track 9, Lazy Old Sun. I really like this one a lot. This one is very 67. Like, it's definitely as trippy as the Kinks got. The Kinks were kind of known as like one of the very, very, very few bands, if not the only band around that time that didn't go psychedelic. And I mean, this is definitely sort of, I don't know if I'd agree with that entirely, because this is definitely this song at least is a step in that direction. I mean, I know Ray Davies obviously wasn't big into like acid or anything like that, but if this was like the only Kinks song I knew, I would totally be convinced he was. But regardless, it is a fantastic song. Definitely one of the more, I mean, all the songs on here are unique, but this one is very, very different, and I like it quite a bit. Track 10, Afternoon Tea. I like this one. It's a very, very sort of happy, carefree sounding song about, well, I adore the backing harmonies on this one. They definitely just add to the sort of luxurious mood of the song. And this is definitely one that it could be seen as just like a comfort song. It is really just so sort of just nice and easy. It's definitely one of the more accessible songs on here. I mean, it's not like the album is like super experimental by today's standards, but it's one of the less, I mean, lyrically, it's definitely one of the less sort of cynical. I'll say that. Track 11, Funny Face. This is another pretty good song. Definitely Dave's best vocal on the album. I really enjoy the sort of pre-chorus, I believe, on this song. It starts out, it's very, soft and mellow, and then it just kicks right into the chorus. I mean, that is definitely just that whole transition. You guys know how much I love dynamics in music, so that is definitely, just that moment is a highlight for me on this record. Track 12, End of the Season. I really like this one, actually. I love the sort of lounge feel of this song, along with Ray's vocals, and the backing harmonies, once again, are just absolutely phenomenal here. This is definitely, I mean, it's like I keep going back to that word unique, but like that's every song on here. I cannot find even Death of a Clown, a song I don't particularly like all that much. It still is so different. Each song is so different from any other song on the record. Oh my gosh. I'll just get to the good stuff now. Track 13, final track, Waterloo Sunset. Well, for starters, this is one of the most perfect songs ever conceived. Also, one of the most perfect songs that could ever possibly be conceived. The riff, the chord progression, the melody, the vocals, the bridge, every single thing about this song makes me so nostalgic for memories that I've never even had. And I mean, this is a song of impeccable beauty. It is so unbelievably pure. This is a very personal song to Ray. I believe he kind of wrote it about, a fantasy he had of, his sister and her boyfriend just going off somewhere. And it's great how you feel for the characters in his songs, because he feels for the characters in his songs. That sort of transferring of empathy is so endearingly beautiful. I feel like I've always kind of interpreted this as a song of just really, just nostalgia or reminiscing in general. I think Ray said it best when he said that, I quote, "The song is about how innocence will prevail over adversity." I could not sum up the song any better than that. Now, I mentioned her earlier, but I'm going to mention her again. Raza Davies is the secret weapon of this song. She's the one that does the backing vocals on here and pretty much on the rest of the album. And her voice is so sort of haunting and just, it gives me chills, honestly. It's just, just her going, ooh, but like something about the way it's produced, I don't know. But her voice is, I would have liked to hear her, like a full album of her. Even just doing that, just her voice is just gorgeous. One last thing. This is Jack's favorite song of all time. And of course, only I would brag to the general public about this, but I had the distinct honor of showing it to him for the first time. He was kind of, I mean, as I've said in past videos, he's a big fan of the whole British invasion scene, and he was talking about wanting to get into the Kinks. I'm like, have you heard Waterloo Sunset? He's like, no, I haven't. I'm like, what? It's the best song ever. So we sit down on his front lawn, and I show it to him, and he looked absolutely transfixed. I mean, I could just tell right there. I'm like, whoa, I think I just changed this kid's life. We were both talking about this song, and we both agreed that the Kinks knew that this was their best song they had yet, and they knew to make it the closer. So many bands mess this up. Like, take a great album like Rubber Soul, for example. You cannot tell me that Run for Your Life is a better closer than In My Life could have been or would have been. You cannot tell me that. I'm sorry. No matter how much you like the album, it's one of my absolute defining albums ever. But I mean, there's just no denying that some bands, they just didn't get that closer right. Thank God that the Kinks managed to get one of the most perfect songs and just put it right at the end. That you had to just work your way through the other great songs to get to the perfect song. It is the Kinks' finest hour. You cannot convince me otherwise. Overall, I'm sure many other people have said this, but I've said it to friends and family, so I'll just say it to you right now. The Kinks are considered to be one of the greatest bands of all time, and I still think they're underrated. They are so distinct from any other bands, not just of this time, but of all time. Everything you hear that sounds kind of similar to them, they were influenced by the Kinks. And this album is no exception. I loved the majority of their stuff beforehand, but this is what started their greatness. And I mean, it is such a defining album of the 60s. Definitely, if you are just a classic rocker 60s fan and you haven't heard this album, please indulge yourself, not just in this, but in the Kinks' entire early discography. It is absolutely life-changing. I mean, I can't find enough good things to say about this album. It's probably one I personally feel like I could listen to every single day. It's like, if you're feeling happy, throw it on. If you're feeling cynical and angry, throw it on. If you're sad and you need something like a pick-me-up or something to relate to even, put it on. It is good for anything. And I could say the same for pretty much most of the other Kinks stuff. I do have a Kinks album coming very soon for my 102 album countdown, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I really hope you somewhat enjoyed this. You know, I mean, if you have anything that you want me to talk about or review, music or movie related, please drop it down below in the comments. My name is Jake. I'll be back.